Well, hello there, humans, bees, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and the content is pouring forth. This time, we are going to be having a look at the Chattilon 25T, the Tier 10 French light tank that is fresh to the world in patch 4.2. Now, this is part of what is going to be a big series on the French lights. I'm going to do a lot of reviews on these tanks. I want to really get down and dirty with them and give them a good going over. The reason being that I'm a light tank aficionado. I love light tanks. I love them a whole lot. They are the kind of tanks that really make the game a joy for me, as far as I'm concerned anyway. And I really want to do this tank review first because I only did one review on the test server for patch 4.2, and that was the Chat out of this whole line, because it was the tank that I was really excited for and the tank that I thought was going to be the tank that I was really looking forward to. If I'm honest, it was a personal thing. I really wanted this tank for a long time, and we got it, which is great, and I'm really enjoying driving it. Don't get me wrong, I am enjoying driving the tank. Is it OP? Not even bloody close. Does it need a buff? I think so. We'll get to that, the what, the why, and the how for. We're also going to talk about how I drive it and how I think you can drive it to be the most successful, and some of the things it does well and some of the things it doesn't do well. But I want to break down even further a little comment that I made when I did the full patch review. Basically, the gist of it is that test server is test server. And it's very hard to hypothesize. Well, it's not hard to hypothesize. It's hard to get it right when you come to a tank and you're playing against bots and you're playing it in a training room and that's the only access you have to the vehicle. It's one of the reasons why I've always agitated for people to actually for Wargaming to actually let us test these tanks live on server prior to the patch, if at all possible, because the chaos of a live game really puts the acid test on a tank, and you learn more about it from running it in 10 games on a live public server than you do spending a day driving it around against bots on tests. And it's just how it is. Like you can't simulate that effectively. Anyway, let's talk about what's good about this tank. It's a light tank, so it's going to have a lot of the commonalities that good light tanks have, but it's very agile. Like, it's incredibly agile. Hey, your flat out agility on this thing is brilliant. 74.6 degrees of traverse if you run it with vents. If you don't run it with vents, you end up with about 73 degrees of traverse. That's with the equipment obviously using improved control. I used improved control on it because it has a great donk. It has a big engine. It's got mad acceleration. I didn't feel like it needed more of that. It's got crazy camo being a light tank. You've got the on-the-move camouflage, and I utilize that. And I'm going to show you some gameplay of the camo specifically because it really is very effective at just abusing and exploiting on the move camo. It's got that massive top speed. It gets out at 65 kilometers an hour, which is massive, and it's got a crazy, like, nearly 32 as a horsepower to weight ratio, which is pretty crazy considering that the Leo 1, for instance, which is a fast moving tank, has 23 as a horsepower to weight ratio. Obviously, it's got that big burst damage. We all know that it's an auto loader. It's got 3 rounds at 310 alpha, which gives you 930 alpha, which is bloody handy, and low profile, which can't be overlooked. I know a lot of people don't ever talk about that, but if a tank is low to the ground, it's easy to hide and you don't get hit as much, which is 2 thumbs up in this man's dictionary. And you can see just from watching the gameplay, I want to talk a little bit about my light tank style. And I think it's one of the reasons why I would not recommend this as a tank for an inexperienced player. It is just not the kind of tank that an inexperienced player is going to hop in and do well in, because it's not an overpowered damage pump tank and it has no armor. So you have to be able to maneuver in tight spaces. You have to have excellent map awareness, and you've got to have a pretty good knowledge of tactics within the game itself. And you can see my light tank style is very much about, I try and spot for my team when at all possible and when I've got the horses to do it, and I try and combine and focus fire really important targets and isolate targets, so that I'm not dealing with a whole heap of different targets all at once. And the other thing that you really need to learn in this tank is you shouldn't go seeking brawls like this. I mean, I come out of this pretty well, but it could have gone horribly wrong. You saw I just lost 990 hit points from that waffle tractor. Like, he HE'd me for pretty much over half my hit points. Well, not pretty much. More than half my hit points. And I just get a lucky bounce there. And that's a real susceptibility of the tank, obviously, but you don't want to get stuck in one-on-one situations all the time because you just are going to eat damage, okay? So what you want to do is find targets where you can dump off a full clip, do that big burst damage, and then run away. Because really, that's what you're after. And we get an absolutely crazy bounce there, hey? I love it. You know, this is swings and roundabouts. That's what the game's all about. Now, that's all well and good, but you can see there's a lot of stuff going on there, and it's not something I would recommend at all to people who are new to the game. These French lights are wafer thin armor-wise. I'm going to break down now. We had to talk about all the good stuff, and there are a lot of good features with the Bat Chat, and now I want to talk about some of the... Oh, look at the lag. Like, man, I'm dealing with the worst ping in the world. Look at the 300 plus ping all the time, running around. Look at the problems. Look at the problems. Something that you probably don't realise is a problem, and which I found out just here, is gun elevation. And this is the perils of oscillation. You have an oscillating turret. When you try and pick it up and put it in the sky, the back of the turret hits the top of the chassis, and you can't get the shot off. And you've got to go all the way up there to try and get it off, and it basically saves, and I still can't get the shot off. And this is like me going, wow, I didn't realise that that was going to be such a big issue, but it really, really is a massive issue. 12 degrees up is all you've got. And like everyone else that's a tier 10 medium, for instance, gets 15 to 20 or 17 to 20. You're wafer thin. Like, you saw that grill wreck me. Look at this bloody... Oh, this just... Ow. I mean, the 57 is a whole different kettle of fish. Reliance on team. I set myself up all the time for failure because I rely on people. Look at the team. I've got 3 guys in the spawn there. So I've spotted for them. I've gone out and spotted targets. And I'm now going to go out and spot more targets so that, you know, they can shoot them. And I'm being very selfless, and I'm playing it as a light tank. And I'm playing it as a light tank at tier 10 because that's something that's really cool. And they're just sitting there waiting. Those guys are literally in front of 3 massive tanks. And I spend a whole lot of time spotting everyone here. And you know where this is going because... relying on your team is just setting yourself up for a catastrophic amount of heartache and frustration. And we've already lost the 183 who was just in the middle of the spawn, and the Jagdpanzer 100 wasn't behind cover, and this is how it ends. This guy gets killed and someone else gets killed really quickly, and they lose a tank. They lose 1 tank. Basically, the team didn't take advantage of the targets that I gave them. And that's really rough because that's one of the jobs of a light tank. And when you play it in that kind of a style, you end... I mean, you can see I spotted 5 of them in the end, and I got 1,700 assisted damage. But really, that wasn't enough. And it's a problem with the tank because the tank's damage output is very, very much on the low end of the scale. Its penetration is low too, and I've had lots of people tell me that the penetration's an issue. I have not found that to be the case. I run calibrated shells with it. If you run calibrated shells, you can get the penetration up to 252 millimeters. That's fine. Like, that's just fine. I've had no worries penning people with 250 millimeters of pen at all. Like, if you're struggling with 252 millimeters of pen, you're going to have to, you know, go back to the drawing board. I used to run the T54 with 201 millimeters of pen and only run 5 heat. And if you do that for a few hundred games or a few thousand games, you'll learn how to get targets. And the DPM though is really, really quite low. The ammo loadout is a massive issue too, and you're going to see why in just a wee bit. But you can see exactly what I mean here by how aggressive with this tank you have to be, and how I'm using the speed and the agility and working in really close quarters with a whole bunch of red tanks right on me, and basically isolating tanks so that they can't hit me. So now I'm going to have a crack at that 215B there, and the E4 can't really do a whole lot for me. I'm angled up really steeply. He can't get easy shots on me. That one IS-8 is next. just keeping the E4 at arm's distance while we work over through this 215B. And that's all well and good, but your DPM is very low. To give you some kind of insight onto how your DPM fares, you've got about 2780 DPM, I think is the number. The Leopard 1, for instance, which is godly, has 3562. So you're really low. You're low on the damage per minute number. That's fine. And I don't mind that so much because your burst is good. But I struggled to put out damage in this tank, I'll be honest. I never struggled to put out damage in mediums. Now, I understand that this tank has a lot more going for it than a normal medium doesn't, and I'm not saying that it needs a massive buff to its damage, but it needs a buff to its damage of some kind. I mean, you can see the burst is excellent. When you run it with another autoloader, wow, you can really do nasty things. Running it with like a 57 Heavy or an AMX 50B, it's really fun, really good fun. But the ammo loadout's paltry. You get 30 rounds in your ammo loadout. Everyone else who's a medium tank, and I keep comparing it to mediums because we have nothing else to compare it to, gets like 50 to 70 rounds at tier 10. You've got 9.1 rounds a minute, and you only have 30 rounds of ammunition. It's really tough to spread it out correctly. And because I reload all the time when I'm on a new clip, I actually run out of ammunition because, I mean, I've got 1 round left here, and you get this stupid bug with the game where you fire it, and if you run out of ammo of that particular type, it completely reloads, and it loses this game for me right here. I go from having 3 shots to doing 1 shot and going on a full reload because the clip is just too small. 15 rounds of APCR and 9 rounds of heat is not an obscenely bad ammo loadout. And I've got 6 rounds of HE because you run into grills and waffle tractors and tanks like that and other, you know, other AMX, other BC 25Ts, and you want to hit those type of tanks. So I run 6 HE, and if I drop that down, which I'm gonna have to, I just think that's unfair. Like, there's so many other tanks out there that do that and have no worries whatsoever. They can, like, 70 rounds at tier 10 is not, you know, that happens. Why does this thing only have 30 rounds of ammunition? It's just insane. Like, the Leopard 1, for instance, has 60 rounds of ammo. The E50M has 48 rounds of ammunition. The Batchat has 30. Now you see there, I just pushed up top and I spotted. I saw all these mediums and I looked and there's 3 tanks spotted down the bottom and only 2 heavies. So I decide to run straight down here and help these heavy tanks because you're not a brawler and you don't have massive gun depression and you don't have gun elevation. So manufacturing shots in close quarters like that is very difficult without absolutely taking fire back. So what I want to do is come down here and leverage off these other tanks that are fighting down here, namely the VK-45 and the IS-8 that's already dead, to put some damage into the guys that are going to be really tough to kill, like the IS-7, the E-100, who are going to be struggles for the rest of the team to kill. And of course, there's 4 guys at the back. There's a TD at the back and 3 mediums up top, but you know, they get wrecked, and our FE-4202 carries on like a pork chop about me leaving him, and that's why he died. He died because he was bad. That's about the only reason why. But you can see I spotted tanks up the top. I then came down and supported the heavies, and now I'm going to be a sneaky little bugger again, zip past this E-100, and I'm going to take one for my troubles. That's all right, but I don't actually end up taking a big one, so, you know, happy days. And then I'm going to reset my camo and start working and using the mobility. You can see already just how mobile this tank is. Look, if I was honest, if I could change one thing, it would be, and I didn't really list it as a problem because it's not so much a problem. The 3-second reload time between the shells is just bloody stupid. That's the thing that really kills it for me. It could put out more damage if it was allowed to spend. There's that gun elevation again. Can you see me struggling to get that shot off on the E-100? Like, the Leopard has 20 degrees of gun elevation, and you're sitting there struggling to get that shot off. Or the E-50M and all those kind of tanks. And you have to drive all the way up here to get the shot. But I mean, you're mobile enough to do it, but still, you shouldn't have to. I think that's unfair to have a reload time of 3 seconds. If it was 2 seconds, then you would have a really unique feature on the tank, and I would completely be happy to live with an extra 2 seconds on the magazine reload. Say, take it out to 16 seconds instead of 14 seconds. And that way you get a chance to put your burst damage out. Because your top end DPM is just not high enough to brawl with any of the tanks that want to push on you. They have much better armor profiles, generally speaking, and they are much better in the nasty stuff. And if they push on you and they decide to hit point trade, it can be very, very ugly very, very quickly. So if I could make one suggestion, it would be to lower that shell reload time down to 2 seconds. Give it something that allows it, like 4 seconds is a legitimate length of time for it to get that burst off and actually use that 3-round clip, whereas 6 seconds is just a long time for a tank with no armor whatsoever. I mean, HE pennable by Death Stars, all that kind of stuff. For all that, I don't get penned a lot in this tank by massive HE rolls. It happens every once in a while, and you saw that. But I'm very much aware of where the big dogs are. And I guess that's because I've been playing the tank for so long. This is exactly the kind of game that I love playing in a light tank. So I want to cap this area up here, and the red guys just won't let me. They've all gone top, and my guys finally move up. I'm worried about getting hit from the back because I haven't yet seen that Jagdpanzer 100, and he's a big worry. But my main aim here is, as a light tank, is to cap the base, is to use my mobility. I want to get the bases capped, build pressure, make them come out, and smash them for it. And this IS-7, he's not going to let me cap either. They all want a piece of action. So what I'm going to do is use the great assets the tank has, namely the incredible mobility and the speed, and go and cap the other two bases. And then I'm going to pepper them from the flanks, and we're going to win this one because we pressure, and just do the business. Now, here we go. We're going to cap B. Now, this is not the kind of old school medium tanking that a lot of people kind of expect, I think, from this tank. And by the way, you probably haven't seen me have too many issues with pen. That's because 250mm of pen is enough. Like, can we stop carrying on that 250mm of pen is not enough if you run calibrated shells? And for God's sakes, if you're not running calibrated shells, that's fair enough, but it's not exactly like your pen is unmanageable then either. Like, I've driven it with both, and it works both ways. It works with both. 240mm of pen will still get the job done. Either way. So we cap, and then we move onwards and upwards, and we go down towards A, and we're going to cap A as well. And we're not just going to cap A, we're going to continue to pour in nasty little flank shots and make life troubling for the rest of the humans. Snake Eyes is up the top in the IS-7, by the way, just doing nothing, just camping. I'm sorry, Snake, it's not true, you noob. So we're capping A now, and we've already got like a 200-point lead on the board. And that's how you drive a light tank. You spot targets, you take advantage of the enemy's lack of mobility, and you put shots in when you can. Your job isn't really to completely fill up the stat sheet with damage. I think this is an underdone tank in terms of damage. I struggle to crack 3k in this tank consistently, and it is easily my lowest damage tier 10. I mean, I only played 16 games on NA with this, but I was at 1700 average damage, which is laughable when you look at it compared to, say, you know, the M60, where I played 28 games on NA and had 2600 average damage. Now, I don't expect it to be able to do that because it can do so many other things the N60 can't, but I would expect it to be able to output a reasonable level of damage in the course of the game. Now, I got better numbers than that on Asia. I ended up with about 2000 average damage on Asia, but it's still lacking in that damage stakes, and that's fair enough. I do also want to acknowledge that my ping is so bad at the moment that it is quite difficult to drive as successfully as I normally would. Like, you know, when I'm running around against people with 25, 30 ping, and I'm running at 320 ping, you're going to lose some of the fights that you normally win. That's just how things go. And you can see there, really good solid stuff. 580 victory points earned, 2,900 damage. Like, that's solid as hell. That's a good light tank. That's what a good light tank does. It's not a stand and brawl. Like, I think we've been spoilt by 54 lightweights and LTTBs and VK2801s, where you get light tanks that have all the bells and whistles. They've got the armor, they've got the DPM, they've got they've got the camo, they've got the speed. This is in a tier that is incredibly competitive and has massive guns against it, and it can do things those other tanks can't, but it is not that one-on-one knife fighter that overpowered light tanks are. I really enjoyed driving it. And Snake will tell you he was like a bit dubious, and we run 5 at 320 ping and lost 1 last night. And the whole time this tank fulfilled a really solid role on the battlefield of scouting, sniping, damage, capping, all those kind of things, and was really successful. I just think it needs a touch more damage, that's all. A touch, just a touch. Like, lower that burst damage and let it get that burst off, and I'd be stoked. I actually did incredibly well comparatively in the BC25T AP, which was kind of nuts. I was like at 2,300 average damage in that, and I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that you're playing tier 8s and tier 9s. Anyway, look after yourselves, stay safe on the battlefield, and until next time, bye for now.